Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm SocietySucks and today I'm checking out why your vote doesn't count by CGP Grey. I'm not exactly sure what he means by this. The title could be misleading, so I'm not gonna say anything, I'm just gonna watch the video first.
Welcome to The Problem with First Past the Post Voting explained by me, CGP Grey. The royal family has a problem, but this isn't just any royal family. These are the lions, rulers of the jungle since time immemorial. There are protests over the monarchy's absolute power, and the citizens of the animal kingdom want a say in how they are governed. Bending to the pressure, Lion has abdicated his crown, and King is to be an elected office. To ensure a smooth transition, and because she is craftier than her husband, the Queen Lioness is remaining on the throne with the power to set the rules for all elections in her kingdom. She has declared that all citizens get one and only one vote, and that the candidate with the most votes wins the crown. This method of voting is most often called First Past the Post, awkwardly abbreviated as FPTP, or Winner Take All. The system is simple, fair, and logical, right? Actually, no. It's a terrible, terrible idea.
Yes.
Why? Well, to see the problems with First Past the Post, let's watch the first election unfold in the animal kingdom. It's an exciting time for the burgeoning democracy, and 7 hopeful candidates come forward to run and represent their parties. They put on their best campaigns, citizens head out to the polls, and the votes are counted. The results come in as follows. Turtle gets 9% of the vote.
Well, if we have 7 candidates, then technically you could win with as little as 20% of the vote. So the leader will only be chosen by like 20% of the population. And the other 80% basically didn't get a say in it. The one with the most votes winning, this works if you have 2 candidates. Any more than 2, and at that point, a very small minority of the population could choose the winner.
Vote, monkey gets 18, gorilla gets 19, owl gets 13, leopard gets 20, tiger gets 15, and snake gets 6. Under the rules of First Past the Post,
and you see someone with 20% wins
for the length of her term. But take another look at the results, and you'll see the first problem with this system,
Yep.
minority rule. The vast majority of citizens, 80%, wanted someone else as king, but leopard still won. There were only 7 candidates.
Where there were only 2 candidates, this would have worked.
She might have only gotten 5% of the vote, but still been elected. This problem
the more candidates, the worse it is.
The second problem with First Past the Post is that, given enough time, it results in an inevitable, unavoidable 2-party system.
Yep.
Why? To see, let's watch what happens over several election cycles.
People will say, well, this candidate has no chance of winning, so I'll just vote for this one.
Only now, all the citizens of Animal Kingdom remember the results from last time.
Yep.
This information changes how they'll behave, particularly
they'll vote
snake
for
and
the
turtle
top
voters,
4.
who must face the reality that they backed unappealing, extremist candidates who don't have a chance of winning. Turtle voters, who were unhappy under leopard rule, decide to back the candidate who has the best chance of winning, gorilla. Now, snake voters want to vote for tiger, who is the candidate they have the most in common with, but they're afraid to because leopard is running a negative campaign against her competitors. Snake voters, not liking the idea of gorilla rule, vote strategically for leopard. The final result looks like this, with leopard getting 26% of the vote and gorilla getting 28%.
And that just keeps going until you only get 2 candidates.
Snake and turtle, seeing their dismal results and knowing the cost of their campaigns, decide to drop out of future races. What started out as a 7-party system is now down to 5. Fast forward to the next election. Only 5 candidates run, and again the voters remember what happened last time. In this election, it's owl voters who recognize that their candidate cannot win. They are centrist voters and less ideological than the rest of the animal kingdom.
So maybe they
don't
split?
Really like gorilla or leopard. Both gorilla and leopard know this, so they each run negative campaigns to capitalize on the fears of the centrists. Owl voters split their vote and are mostly voting against the candidate they dislike rather than supporting the candidate they do like. After this election, gorilla gets 33% of the vote and leopard gets 34%, making her the winner. Owl, as did turtle and snake before her, drops out of the race. In the last election we'll look at, monkey and tiger voters are unhappy. They both really like the candidates they have supported,
well, maybe
but they
they
now
could
have to compromise.
Form a party
monkey voters
together.
agree with gorilla on few issues, but they really don't like leopard. And tiger voters agree with leopard on some issues, but they really don't like gorilla. They strategically abandon their preferred candidate out of fear of the one they disagree with the most becoming king. The final results are leopard 49% and gorilla 51%, with him being crowned the king. Monkey and tiger are the last candidates to drop
and at this
out,
point
and
it's
now
just
the
these
animal
2.
is left with the 2-party system. Because of the centrist and swayable owl voters, in future elections, leopard might take the crown, then gorilla wins it back, only to lose it to leopard again, but the 2 parties never change. The citizens of Animal
It's kind of like it was in the US. We had Trump, then we had Biden, now we have Trump again.
Kingdom ended up with the system.
Yeah, this is pretty much the worst situation you could be in.
They really wanted, but because the mathematics of how the system is set up. Inevitably, given enough time, all First Past the Post systems trend towards 2 main parties. But the choices of the voters still hasn't changed since that first election. Only 2/5 of them wanted either leopard or gorilla as their first choice, and 3/5 of them wanted someone else as their first choice.
But they would
It's
have
this
never
majority of
won.
the voters that becomes disinterested in the democratic process because they feel they have no meaningful way to express their real preferences. But it only gets worse from here. If the citizens of Animal Kingdom are divided into groups before they vote, they are susceptible to gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is a bit tricky, but imagine a block of 10 homes, each with 1 voter inside. 3 are leopard voters, 3 are gorilla voters, and 4 are owl voters. If they're divided up into groups before they vote, whoever decides where the lines are drawn has enormous influence over who wins the election. For example, if you group the 3 leopard voters with the 2 owl voters, and do the same with the 3 gorilla voters, you can eliminate owl from the election, even though owl voters have the largest minority
Technically have
and
the
would win
majority.
under a straight first-past-the-post vote. If the leopard or gorilla parties are in charge when the voting boundaries are...
Yeah, I've already watched a video on gerrymandering by Mapmen, so I'll put a link up to that in the corner. I think this corner right here. So maybe check that out if you want.
drawn, they have enormous incentive to carve out safe seats for themselves. But more on gerrymandering in another video. Bah, I hear you say, vote third party and change the system. This brings us to the
Not gonna
final
work.
and possibly worst problem of first past the post, the spoiler effect. Imagine now that it's been years and years of gorilla or leopard rule. Tiger decides it's time to enter the race. He thinks that the voters are tired of the status quo and he
Nope.
has a shot at winning. He sets up his campaign office, gets a surprising amount of gold and donations, and gets on the Animal News Network to debate with the main candidates. Election night comes around, but alas, Tiger gets only 15% of the vote, mostly from leopard voters who are closest to him on the political spectrum. Gorilla easily beats leopard and gets to be king. This is the first past the post system
And now
at its
these two
worst.
parties have
The
to
better a
work
third party
together.
candidate does, the more it hurts
to
its
beat
own
Gorilla.
voters by guaranteeing a loss for the party they most agree with and a win for the party they most disagree with. And don't forget, Gorilla is no fool. He knows how the system works. Where do you think some of those gold donations came from? Meanwhile, the Queen Lioness is displeased. She's been observing...
See, here in Poland, where I live, the party which got the most votes isn't really the one who's in power. They don't have the most power because the second biggest party and more smaller parties form the coalition, meaning they technically rule even though they didn't get the most votes. So, in this kind of situation, Leopard and Tiger could form a coalition, work together, and they would have 51%. So they would still have a slight majority.
Came
So
from.
not all is lost in this kind
Meanwhile,
of
the
scenario.
Queen Lioness is displeased. She's been observing the elections and sees that the system is bad for her subjects. And she's been thinking, what makes a good voting system? Well, you should be able to vote for the candidate who you like
Every
the most
voting
without
system will
worrying.
have some flaws.
More
That's
choice in
unavoidable.
representatives is better. The system shouldn't be susceptible to gerrymandering, and it should be open to new political parties. Luckily for the Queen, there are several different voting systems to choose from, including the alternative vote, but that will have to be discussed in
I
detail.
think I've already
another
watched
time.
some of the
Thank you very
other
much for
videos
watching.
about the voting he does with the animals. Yeah, I mean, every voting system will have its issues. No voting system is perfect. Somebody will always find something to exploit in whichever system is in place. That is simply unavoidable. It sucks, but that's the reality. Really, the only way to break this kind of system would be to actually vote for more than just the top 2 parties, but good luck finding enough people who will actually do that. Yeah, most countries will just be stuck with choosing 2 parties. Well, most democratic countries. Obviously, there's some countries where the person who's been president for the last 20-something years always wins with more than 90% of the vote. Totally not rigged, guys. Trust me, it's legit. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you want to see more reactions, check out this video right here. And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.